Good afternoon. I'm Amanda Post. Thanks for joining us today. And this is a very special edition of Erie News Now. We're live at the Wall That Heals at the Zem Zem Shrine Club. A welcome home ceremony is set to begin right at noon. We're going to that ceremony now.
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our Welcome Home ceremony. I'm Mike Ruzzi from Erie News Now, and on behalf of Lily Broadcasting, thank you to all of the veterans in attendance today and to the families who have lost loved ones. This is your time, this is your moment, and this is your weekend. Welcome home. Now I'd like to introduce our co-host today, retired Major Joe Fott. Joe, welcome to the Welcome Home ceremony.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, I would first like to introduce Bob Huckel, who will give us the opportunity to have a Pledge of Allegiance. So if you would please stand. Bob?
I got it. You're asking on your feet. I got it.
Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. You may be seated. Thank you. They're going to do the anthem. Governor Ridge, General Dunleavy, honored guests, ladies and gentlemen, warriors, and our fallen brothers in arms. My name is Bob Huckel, potentate of Zem Zem Shrine. On behalf of our nobility, it is my honor to welcome you to Zem Zem and the Wall That Heals project this afternoon. It has been a privilege working with Lily Broadcasting and the Wall That Heals project. I would like to say one last thing to the warriors who made it back. Welcome home. And to our fallen brothers, Semper Fidelis, always faithful. Thank you so much.
Good afternoon, and thank you for joining me with the Wall That Heals Welcome Home ceremony. Please stand if you're able for the singing of the national anthem. This will be performed by Air Force veteran John Betcher. Thank you, John.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
Please stand for the invocation by Vietnam veteran Charles Castelluccio. Sorry about that. That will be followed by the singing of God Bless America.
All rise if you're able to, and uncover. Let us pray together. Heavenly Father, we thank you for this day and for every day, especially today as we honor the 52,200 plus men and women, Vietnam War veterans that have given the ultimate sacrifice. They are not here today. They cannot enjoy the freedoms we all have. So today, Friday, May 27th, 2022, in Erie, Pennsylvania, we are all united as one to pay a special tribute to them. I would like to have a moment of silence for the prayers for all of our veterans that have passed on and for those that have died in the mass shootings and also for those in Ukraine. A moment of silence, please. Heavenly Father, we ask for a full account of all veterans that are missing in action and those that are prisoners of all wars. That is, from all wars. Heavenly Father, watch over the men and women serving in our armed forces all over the world. Keep them safe. All this we ask in Jesus' mighty name. And they all said together, Amen. Thank you.
While the storm cloud gathers over land and sea, let us swear allegiance to a land that's free. Let us all be grateful for a land so fair as we lift our voices to this solemn prayer. God bless America, land that I love. Stand beside her and guide her to the night with light from above, from the mountain to the prairies, to the oceans wide with foam. God bless America, my home, sweet home. God bless America, land that I love. Stand beside her and guide her to the night with the light from above, from the mountains to the prairies, to the ocean wide with foam. God bless America, my home, sweet home. God bless America, my home, sweet home. Thank you.
Now you can take your seats. Thank you. I'd also like to introduce the Legion of Honor.
I got it. Yeah, thanks, John.
Thank you again. Take your seats. Good afternoon and welcome to the Wall That Heals Welcome Home ceremony. It is my honor to be here with you today as we remember the fallen Americans from the war in Vietnam. On behalf of the committee that organized this wall to be here in Erie, I bid you all welcome. A very special welcome to the Gold Star families, Secretary Ridge and Mrs. Ridge, all the other dignitaries that are present and guests, and most importantly to our Vietnam veterans that are present here today. I welcome all of you. Memorial Day is a day that we as Americans pause to remember the fallen. We remember those that have, in the words of President Abraham Lincoln, given their last full measure of devotion. This wall behind me serves as a physical reminder of the more than 58,000 Americans who, when called upon to do so, placed themselves in harm's way and made the supreme sacrifice. Men and women listed on the wall came from all walks of life, from all parts of the country, from every background. They are more than just etchings on the wall. They are lives that were lived. They are lives that were loved. They were lives that were lost. As a nation, we owe them a debt that we can never repay for their loss, but we can remember. We can remember and honor them for their sacrifice that they were willing to lay down on the altar of freedom. For the Vietnam veterans here today, these names etched on a wall are more important than just letters. They are the people that you trained with, the people that you fought with, the people that you laughed with, and that you talked about home with. And for some of you, you held each other in your arms as they passed from this world to the next. We are forever grateful to you and to those that we remember this weekend for their service and sacrifice to the nation. Let us resolve to honor their lives this Memorial Day. Thank you. Among my other duties today, I have the great pleasure of introducing our speakers. Our first speaker this afternoon served in the United States Marine Corps from 1964 to 1968. Sergeant Kenneth Kensel served in Vietnam as a member of the 1st Battalion, 2nd Marines. He was a member of the 1st Raider Battalion. This team performed coastal raids along the coast of Vietnam. Sergeant Ken Kensel was assigned to Combat Action Company, embedded with Vietnamese soldiers, where he lived in local villages during the day and set up ambushes at night and learned about the people. After his tour in Vietnam, Sergeant Kensel trained as a Seabee at Camp Lejeune and would later become a military police officer while stationed at Quantico, Virginia. Ken Kensel would go on to serve his community for the next 32 years as a Mill Creek police officer, become chief of police for Allegheny College and Mercyhurst University. Sergeant Kensel has been very active with local veterans community and a strong supporter of Vietnam veterans community. Please welcome Sergeant Ken Kensel.
Thank you. I appreciate that bio. The Vietnam War came and went, leaving behind a great deal of scars on the history of our country. It wasn't because of the men and women who selflessly left the safety of their homes to fight the war, but rather how we were treated when we came home. Words such as blame, disparage, dishonor, and shame can be used to describe how Americans at home treated the 2,700,000 troops returning, courageous men and women who fought in Vietnam. We put on a uniform and traveled across the globe in an attempt, in part, to stop the spread of communism, and those who made it home were denigrated and vilified and called baby killers, among other profanities. Vietnam veterans should have been honored, celebrated, and praised for their service and sacrifice. We were not. America failed us, leaving a dark stain in our history. Walls such as this now cover our country. Memorials are found throughout the states and the countries of our allies. Any fighting man that had actual boots on the blood-drenched soil of Vietnam has some sort of post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD, which has become a mental buzzword. And as we are trying to heal ourselves, along comes Agent Orange, that our government said was safe. And to this day, more names are being engraved on the wall, directly linked to it, from cancers to blood disorders. This wall helps us to cope with this. It's called the healing wall. But nothing will ever heal us, but it'll help us cope with their deaths. So many friends, and that's a good thing. Regardless of how we were treated when we stepped off the airplane and back on American soil, we stood strong for our country. Some of us traded our uniforms for new uniforms, those of public service. We never stopped serving our country. Our careers took us down different paths. Firefighters, police officers, civic leaders, public servants, nurses, doctors, teachers, and industry, while others went on to do great things that changed the world. For some of us, a life of military service was a calling. We learned that our young who would become the honorable servicemen and women of today, just as we were honorable servicemen and women of yesterday. The Vietnam War generation came from every walk of life and served with much patriotism, integrity, and dignity as the war generations who came before us. Most choose to go saying, "Seni." Others were drafted and carried the weight and worry of the world on their shoulders and did their duty. Vietnam veterans have taken care of one another when others didn't understand our pain or turned a blind eye to it. We made sure we cared for those who would accept the call of duty to our country. Our generation had a new task. We resolved to make certain today's service members would receive what we did not: support, respect, and appreciation. Vietnam veterans will always stand watch because of who we are, and how we were created, and the lessons that we have learned. The statistics of the Vietnam War are staggering. Of the 2,700,000 military soldiers sent into the military fighting men sent into the war zone, 300,000 were wounded, 75,000 of them permanently disabled, and another 1,200 remain missing and unaccounted for. We have only to look at the names etched on our great Vietnam War Memorial to realize the great cost suffered by so many families. Here on this day, and looking out, I see many families here. It does my heart good to see this. This wasn't a story during the 60s and 70s. It was a far cry from a sad reality. We took a solemn oath that this one generation will never abandon till the day we die, and then it's done. Thank you very much. God bless you.
Our second speaker is a stalwart member of the Erie County veterans community. Major General Mike Dunleavy has been answering the call of the nation since 1967. General Dunleavy graduated from the University of Notre Dame in 1967 and entered into active duty in the United States Army. This would start his over 40-year military service to the nation. Lieutenant Dunleavy was assigned as an intelligence officer in Germany. This would lead to him becoming an advisor to the Vietnamese in Vietnam. After completing his tour in Vietnam, General Dunleavy received his Juris Doctorate from the University of Buffalo in Buffalo. Judge Dunleavy joined the Army Reserves during law school and has commanded units at multiple levels to include the Deputy Commanding General of the Army's Intelligence and Security Command. Shortly after 9/11, General Dunleavy was recalled to active duty, where based on his unique combat, intelligence, and legal background, he was personally chosen by the Secretary of Defense to create and establish a center for gaining intelligence from some of the world's most dangerous terrorists at Guantanamo Bay. He answered the difficult challenge that the nation had asked of him. He retired from the Army in 2012. General Dunleavy embodies the spirit of service here in Erie County. He is friend to nearly every veteran and veterans cause in northwestern Pennsylvania. I can assure you he is committed to helping our local veterans and continues to be very active in the veterans community. With that being said, it is my great personal pleasure to introduce my friend and fellow veteran, Major General Mike Dunleavy.
Wow, I don't know what to say after that introduction, but the check's in the mail.
Thank you, sir.
You know, it's such a privilege to be here to see all of you. I don't know why I'm up here. You speak for everything that we're here for about today. Yesterday, when this was set up in 3.5 hours, it took to set up this wall, it set a record for speed. The weather, God's blessed us. But yesterday, I had an event that happened that does everything about healing this wall and what it's doing for us. I was standing over there were about 100 people walking up to the wall, and somebody was coming back, and I looked at him and they said, gee, he looks young, but I think he's my age. And I said, welcome home, brother. And he said, I didn't serve. I said, do you have family at the wall? He said, no. I said, then why are you here? He said, when I was a freshman in college, my roommate and I became best of friends. He dropped out at the end of the freshman year, enlisted in the Marine Corps, and a year later he was killed in Vietnam. So here's this person coming 55 years later to hopefully close a wound in his heart. And I would hope that everybody here would have the same experience. Now, 55 years ago, we were soldiers, Marines, airmen, coasties, and we were very, very young. We were kids, but we were not so young when we came home from Vietnam. And 40 years ago, there was a wonderful artist at Yale University who submitted as her design for a memorial for Vietnam, this wall. Now, I got to tell you, initially I wasn't really enamored with the design. It took me 5 years and a bunch of friends, like John Williams out there, a good Marine, to get this soldier where he needed to be. And we went there, and it was a dark night when we approached the wall. And I'm really sorry I lost it for a moment, because my soul was taken by that wall when I first saw it. It covered all the emotions in my heart. I couldn't believe it. And as I reached out and touched the name of my soldiers and my friends who didn't come home, I realized that this memorial was truly the best thing we could have. I think of Pat Dixon and Kevin Burke. They were squad mates of mine at Infantry Officer Basic. We also were classmates from Notre Dame. By June of '69, they were both gone. They died saving the lives of their soldiers. Now, 2.7 million of us actually served in Vietnam with boots on the ground. And now there are only 850,000 of us. We are passing at a rate unknown in prior wars. And so we don't have time to hold on to anger or bitterness. I certainly don't. We did what we were called to do. So let's wear our colors proudly, and I see that most of you do. And talk to your families. You know, every time I go into downtown Northeast, I see the pictures hanging on the lampposts of servicemen, old and new. It makes me feel good. Now, Gary Sinise, I don't know if you know of him, but he was Lieutenant Dan, and he has been a stalwart supporter of us. He said that a person never dies until they're forgotten. This wall, your efforts, and this wall make sure that the 58,000 plus on that wall haven't been forgotten. By being here today, you've brought all of that to bear. Now, It is time for us to bury that sorrow and bitterness. It's been a tough slog. Sometimes we lose friends like Jack Earhart and Bob Bear Newber, who died long after the war was over with, but it killed them just the same. And we know that many of our friends, as Kenny brought up, Agent Orange and a whole heart, cardiac, and all the things, diseases that were not in prior wars are coming home to roost now. So if you remember, General Douglas MacArthur, 70 years ago, said in his farewell speech to the cadets at West Point, he said, "Old soldiers never die, they just fade away." Well, as we fade away, our time is short. You did your duty, you answered the call of your nation, maybe you were willing, maybe you weren't. You honored our brothers and sisters by your commitment here today and what you've helped preserve our country in troubled times. I hope you will leave here with a smile on your face to know that you did the right thing. You stood tall when others walked away. And you can know that you did a job well done and your mission is completed. God bless you and God bless America. Hooah! And now you're going to see what a bunch of old soldiers and a few Marines and a whole bunch of airmen and sailors and coasties are going to do. My friend, I know you're going to introduce him, but he was my sergeant, he was my congressman, he was my secretary, and I'm proud to call him friend. Tom? Everybody, thank God.
Our keynote speaker is truly a person of global stature. Secretary Tom Ridge was Pennsylvania's 43rd governor. He and his wife, former First Lady Michelle Ridge, are joining us today. Governor Ridge was drafted into the military service in 1968, his first year of law school. He attended basic training at Fort Dix, New Jersey, advanced infantry training at Fort Polk, Louisiana, and the NCO Academy at Fort Benning, Georgia. Staff Sergeant Ridge served in Company B, 1st to the 20th to the 23rd AmeriCal Division, where he earned a Bronze Star with V device, among other awards. In 1982, he ran for a seat in Congress and was reelected to that seat 5 times. In 1994, Tom Ridge was elected the 43rd governor of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. Following the attacks on 9/11, President Bush created the Office of Homeland Security and named Governor Ridge to head the newly created Office of Homeland Security. In 2003, Tom Ridge would become the first Secretary of Homeland Security. Secretary Ridge has been in the service of the nation for most of his adult life. He has given his talents, his skills, his loyalty to the American people. On a personal note, my most memorable conversation with Secretary Ridge was a few years ago. He was on his way to a reunion at Fort Benning, Georgia. We were talking about the NCO Academy and Fort Benning in general. It dawned on me that I was talking with Tom Ridge, the veteran, just having a conversation about the Army from one veteran to another. It was one of the most meaningful conversations of my life. Thank you for taking the time out that you've taken to have the conversation with me, Secretary Ridge. Veterans from all corners of the nation look up to you for your service and your personal conversations with you from one veteran to another. They carry great meaning with them. Thank you for all your work on behalf of the veterans of Vietnam. Ladies and gentlemen, the first Secretary of Homeland Security, Pennsylvania's 43rd Governor, Tom Ridge.
Thank you. Great time. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, sir. By the way, I chair the National Organization of Disability. I'm glad you're here. I love the language. Ladies and gentlemen, I just observed that for the past couple of years, I've been privileged to serve as the chairman of the National Organization on Disability. And I just thank this gentleman for his service to all of us. It's one of the most beautiful languages in the world, sign language. It's one of the most beautiful. And Joe, thank you for that kind introduction. Thank you for your warm response. I must tell you, as I was sitting back there just for a moment, seeing all my fellow Vietnam veterans in the audience, I have been privileged to serve my community and my country in many different capacities. I would say to my colleagues here, there's nothing of which I am more proud to have worn the uniform of my country and served in that faraway place as you did. We are certainly a band of brothers and sisters. There were over 7,000 women that served there. Most of them were nurses, God bless them. It's great to be with you. I would say to you that I think most of my fellow Vietnam veterans could relate to what I'm going to share with you tonight. And I suspect if they close their eyes, it'll take them back a bit to that faraway place. On a cloudless night with a brilliant full moon and a full canopy of iridescent stars, the Vietnam veterans here today could almost imagine the dawn of the next day. The heavens were bright, yet their watches said it's 3 a.m. They knew that in a couple hours they would disarm their claymore mines and leave their ambush site. The sunlight of a new day remained hours away. Tomorrow was a gift. One more day to persevere, to adjust, and one more day to survive. One more day before your 12 or 13-month tour was over, and you could return home to enjoy the blessings of liberty and freedom that were not available to the people in the country in which you were serving. We talked about the thousands that have died in their service to their country and in selfless sacrifice in support of those with whom they served. I would dare say, you talk to these veterans here, one of their primary missions wherever they went was to make sure that their buddy next to them got home alive too. Hundreds of thousands sustained both visible and invisible and permanent wounds, as previous speakers have mentioned. Those who died in combat and in service, their sacrifices memorialized by the etching of their names in marble on the Vietnam Veterans Wall of Honor on the Mall in our nation's capital. I personally thought it was very, very important to etch their names because during the war, much was made of statistics like baseball or football scores to infer progress on a promised march to victory. Those god-awful body counts, soulless statistics, which hid the sadness and sorrow of the families who lost their sons and daughters, brothers and sisters. In November of '82, the wall was dedicated to honor our fallen comrades, and it remains one of the most frequently visited memorials in the country, and understandably so. I don't know this precise figure of the fellow Americans who weren't even born when the last Americans were withdrawn from the battlefield. I thought about that during what we're here today. The young men and women in our high schools and grade schools around Erie County kind of wonder what they know about America's history and those who lived during that period of time, because it's generally limited to a few paragraphs in civics or history books, if at all remembered, sometimes in periodic reflections of journalists or soldiers such as yours truly over Memorial or Veterans Day, or an occasional television program. At times, it seems that our country would prefer to move on from the proud celebrations of the sacrifice and contributions of the World War II greatest generation and skip over those in Vietnam to the proud and justifiable embrace and support of those men and women today combating the global scourge of terrorism. While historians will forever debate America's involvement in Southeast Asia, there is one proudly positive, important legacy associated with that war and those who served, and the men and women here today. The country has finally learned to distinguish the war from the warrior. We finally understand more than now, nor than ever, that those who wear the uniform of the country don't pick and choose the wars they fight. Elected officials do that. So again, I'm going to repeat, that's one of our proudest legacies. Now, Americans will distinguish the war from the warrior and pay tribute to all those men and women who wear the uniform, regardless of where their service takes them. Regardless of how individual citizens view the role our military has and continues to play in the post 9/11 world, all of us in attendance here are universally grateful for the sacrifice and service of those who've answered the call to serve. I believe the vanguard of that effort has been led by Vietnam veterans who reflected on the country's response to their service those many decades ago. It certainly wasn't very pretty, I will tell you that, or positive. More often than not, it was petulant and provocative, which reminds me, in a somber moment as I share those serious thoughts with you, first response I had with my mother, God rest her soul, when I came back from Vietnam, 932 Colony Drive across from the Erie Plaza. She said, "Know what I made you for dessert tonight?" She said, "Rice pudding." I said, Mom, I just spent months and months stomping through rice patties. That's a great idea, but thank you. I appreciate the thought. Thank you very much. Rice pudding. Only Mom. On a more serious note, I don't know a single Vietnam veteran who isn't proud of the men and women who serve their country today. I don't know a single Vietnam veteran who isn't proud of their service, notwithstanding the country's mixed feelings about our involvement then and there. And I also don't know a single Vietnam veteran who hasn't thought about a friend whose name's etched in the granite, who hasn't privately said to himself or any family member, "There but for the grace of God go I." We used to say, same mud, same blood. That was an expression often heard, in addition to take 2 salt tablets and drive on. The wall is a reminder of the ethnic, religious, and racial diversity of those who served. May God continue to bless them and the country they courageously served. And God bless all of you. Thank you for spending this moment with us today. I salute my fellow Vietnam veterans. I'm very proud to be associated with each and every one of you. Well, thanks. Sergeant, bookended, and general. It's good to my buddy. Thank you. By the way, thank you for getting some great service to the kids. Hey, you do a great job. Thank you much.
Ladies and gentlemen, we have a few presentations to make. I'll need a little help with our special recognition for our ceremony today. I would ask my fellow committeeman for Joe Bonacci to come forward to assist. First, I have the presentation to our speakers. If I could have the flag for Ken Kensel brought out, please. We had a locally produced flag created for Sergeant Kensel. Ken will be able to pick that up at the end of the ceremony today, or now. Next, for Major General Mike Dunleavy, I have 2 flags to present to him. One was a flag that was flown over the Pennsylvania Capitol building in his honor. The other was flown over the National Capitol in his honor. And for Secretary Ridge, a flag that was flown over the Pennsylvania State Capitol in his honor, and a flag that was flown over the United States Capitol in his honor. Next, if I could have the team from Lilly Broadcasting, Brian, Mike, Pam, Scott, and Bob to come back up again. We have a proclamation that's going to be presented to you on behalf of the people of Erie County. Joe?
Thank you, Joe. I had the honor and privilege to work on this committee, and there's so many moving parts and so many people that gave their support and so many organizations. But two definitely need to be recognized. I'm just going to give a 15-second how this happened. About a year ago, the team from Lilly Broadcasting, along with a couple of Vietnam veterans, went up to Tonawanda, New York, to look at this wall. And right there, they said, we have to bring this to Erie. So the next thing they said is, where are we going to put it? And that's when the Zemzems stood up and said, we got it. So with that said, I would like to present this county proclamation that reads, whereas Erie County recognizes the more than 58,000 Americans who made the ultimate sacrifice in Vietnam. Whereas of the names listed on the wall that heals, 59 of those courageous men and women from Erie County who gave their lives defending freedom a half a world away. While many more returned home, they did not receive the hero's welcome and respect that they deserved. Whereas we shall never forget the service members who went off to Vietnam to defend our nation, our liberties, principles of freedom, and democracy. We are eternally grateful for the sacrifices made in service of our Vietnam veterans, those who paid the ultimate sacrifice, those who came home physically and emotionally wounded, and those who returned to our nation's soil to carry on the memory of those who did not return. Whereas our Vietnam veterans who answered the call to serve are an inspiring reminder of our national spirit, patriotism, and courage of all who served in our nation's armed forces. Pennsylvanians everywhere will pay tribute to their service and pay a heartfelt gratitude for the meaningful contributions made to our nation, the state of Pennsylvania, and Erie County. Now, therefore, I, Brenton Davis, Erie County Executive, on this 20th day of May, 2022, in special recognition of Lilly Broadcasting, Erie News Now, and the Zemzem Shrine Club, pays tribute to their commitment to our community, acknowledges the investment of time and effort in bringing the Wall of Heels to Erie for all to enjoy. Bob, I would like to present this proclamation that I just read to the Zemzem and all your members. Thank you. Thank you.
Please welcome the Harbor Creek Vocal Ensemble under the direction of Esther DeMay, who will be performing three patriotic treasures. Thank you, Esther. That was really beautiful. Our ceremony will close with a 21-gun salute, then followed by the playing of taps. The 21-gun salute will be provided by American Legion Post 571, commanded by Bruce Burt. Taps will be led by Jerry Dunn, with echo taps being performed by buglers from Harbor Creek and Northeast High School. Following the playing of taps, Major Tom Kalinowski will play Amazing Grace on his bagpipes. Ladies and gentlemen, please stand. Those in uniform, I would ask that you render a hand salute. Honor Guard, honor the fallen. Walnut Hills Committee for your attendance here today. It was my honor to be part of this welcome home ceremony. Thanks to our singers, musicians, honor guards, and our honored speakers. A special thank you to Lilly Broadcast Company for hosting the Vietnam Veterans Memorial Fund, Walnut Hills, and making this event possible. Join me in honoring the fallen of all of the American conflicts this Memorial Day weekend. Thank you. Please visit the Walnut Hills, and with that, I turn it over to Mike Ruzzi. Thank you.
Thank you for a wonderful ceremony. Before we say goodbye, just say a thank you to our sponsors, Bayfront Benefit Solutions, UPMC Health Plan, the International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers, Local 56. Thank you very much. To all the veterans, welcome home. To the Erie, yes, big round of applause for the veterans. Again, it's your time, it's your moment. A big thank you also to the Erie community. Where else would you rather be than right here, right now? Thank you.